Daniel Brooks believed two things kept the world running: strong coffee and patience. As a single father raising his 6-year-old daughter Emma, he needed plenty of both. Every morning began before sunrise. He packed Emma's lunch, braided her hair with questionable skill, and listened carefully as she explained playground politics like it was international diplomacy. By 8 a.m., he was rushing through traffic toward the glass tower of Halston Marketing, hoping, just once, to arrive before his boss noticed the time. But his boss always noticed. Victoria Hale was known throughout the company as the Ice Queen. She was brilliant, sharply dressed, and frighteningly observant. Nothing escaped her attention, not a typo, not a missed deadline, and certainly not Daniel sliding into his seat 2 minutes late. "Mr. Brooks," she said one morning without looking up from her tablet, "our workday begins at 9, not whenever you decide to join us." Daniel swallowed his response. She had no idea what it took to get a child ready for school alone. Still, he simply nodded. It won't happen again. It did happen again, twice that week. To Daniel, Victoria felt less like a manager and more like a personal storm cloud that followed him around the office. Yet what frustrated him most wasn't her strictness. It was the strange contradiction he couldn't figure out. Sometimes he'd catch her quietly fixing a crooked painting in the hallway or leaving anonymous gift cards in the break room for employees who were struggling. But in meetings, she was all steel and precision. One rainy Thursday evening, Daniel was preparing to leave when Victoria appeared beside his desk. "I need those projections finalized tonight." He glanced at the clock. Emma was waiting at home with their elderly neighbor. "Tonight?" he repeated. "Yes." The client moved the presentation forward. Daniel wanted to argue, but instead he rolled up his sleeves and stayed. 2 hours later, the office was nearly empty. Thunder rattled the windows as Daniel finished the report. When he stepped into the lobby, he noticed Victoria standing near the entrance, frowning at the storm. "You're still here?" she asked. "Had to finish the projections." She looked outside again. "Public transport will be delayed." "Did you drive?" "No. I usually take the train." For a moment, she seemed to consider something. "I'll drop you home." Daniel blinked. "That's not necessary." "It wasn't a request," she replied calmly. The ride was quiet at first, filled only with the rhythm of rain against the windshield. Then Victoria spoke. "You have a daughter." He glanced at her, surprised. "Emma. She's 6. You leave exactly at 5 most days." "I assumed childcare." "Something like that." After a pause, she said softly, "Balancing work and family alone is not easy." Daniel nearly laughed. This was the most human sentence he had ever heard her say. When they reached his apartment building, Emma suddenly burst through the front door, having spotted the car from the window. "Daddy!" She ran straight into his arms before noticing Victoria. "Who's that?" Victoria hesitated, then crouched slightly so she wasn't towering over the child. "I'm your dad's boss." Emma studied her with serious curiosity. "You look like a movie star." For the first time, Daniel saw Victoria completely caught off guard. "Thank you," she said, almost shyly. Emma handed Daniel a crayon drawing. "I made this for you at school." Victoria glanced at it, a messy but heartfelt picture of a father holding a little girl's hand beneath an oversized sun. "That's very good," she told Emma. Something softened in her expression before she quickly straightened. "Good night, Mr. Brooks." The next day, Daniel noticed small changes. Victoria stopped scheduling late meetings for him. She emailed instructions instead of calling him into her office for minor corrections. Once, he even found a children's coloring set on his desk with no note, though he had a strong suspicion who it was from. Weeks passed, and the tension between them slowly shifted into something calmer, almost respectful. Then came the company's biggest crisis of the year. A major client threatened to pull their contract after a disastrous campaign error. Panic spread through the office like wildfire. Teams scrambled, voices rose, and deadlines blurred together. Victoria worked harder than anyone, barely sleeping. Daniel found her one night alone in the conference room, staring at a screen full of revisions. "You should go home," he said gently. "So should you." He pulled up a chair. "Let me help." For hours, they rebuilt the presentation from scratch, ideas bouncing back and forth, neither caring who got the credit. At 2 a.m., Victoria leaned back, exhaustion finally breaking through her composed exterior. "Why are you still here?" she asked quietly. Daniel shrugged. "Because you shouldn't have to fix this alone." She looked at him differently then, not as an employee, but as someone standing beside her rather than beneath her. The presentation the next morning was a success. The client stayed. That evening, the office celebrated, but Victoria slipped out early to the rooftop for fresh air. Daniel followed, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I figured you might need this," he said. She accepted it with a faint smile. "You know," she began, gazing at the city lights, "people think being demanding means I don't care. The truth is, if I don't push for perfection, everything falls apart." Daniel nodded. "I get that. When you're the one everyone relies on, there's no room to drop the ball." She studied him for a long moment. "I misjudged you at first," she admitted. "I saw occasional lateness and assumed a lack of discipline. I didn't see the father waking up before dawn. And I thought you enjoyed making my life difficult," he replied with a small grin. A rare laugh escaped her. The wind picked up, cool and restless. Victoria stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You remind me that strength doesn't always look the way we expect." Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken, though he couldn't explain why. "Victoria." Before he could finish, emotion seemed to overtake her careful restraint. She reached for his hand, hesitated only a second, and then leaned forward, pressing a brief, unexpected kiss to his cheek. The world seemed to pause. She immediately stepped back, clearly surprised by her own boldness. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was unprofessional." Daniel touched his cheek, stunned, but smiling. "Maybe," he said softly. "But not unwelcome." Color rose to her face, and for once, Victoria Hale had no perfectly structured response. After that night, nothing between them was quite the same. They didn't rush into anything. Instead, their connection grew naturally, through shared lunches, conversations about Emma's school projects, and the quiet understanding formed during long workdays. Victoria even attended Emma's school art fair weeks later, standing proudly beside Daniel as Emma explained every painting in great detail. Watching them together, Daniel realized something unexpected: the woman who once drove him crazy had become someone he deeply trusted. One evening, as they walked out of the office side by side, Victoria said, "You know, Emma told me something today." "Oh?" She said her dad smiles more now. Daniel glanced at her. "Funny," he replied. "I was about to say the same about you." She shook her head, but her eyes shone. Sometimes life didn't change with grand gestures. Sometimes it shifted with patience, understanding, and one sudden, courageous kiss that opened the door to something neither of them had planned, but both were ready to welcome.